Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, viewers. Hope everyone is well. So this is a special live that we're doing right now on the back of everything that's happening in Jerusalem. But the question is, what is happening in Jerusalem? And so we're obviously joined here today by the chair of Friends of Al-Aqsa, Ismail Patel. Ismail bhai, the first question, just in terms of a bit of background, we've seen Save Sheikh Jarrah trending. Something's happening in Sheikh Jarrah. What's happening? Where is Sheikh Jarrah and what's happening?
To go back a little bit, Sheikh Jarrah is a district, an area very close to Masjid Al-Aqsa. It is within East Jerusalem. The residents of Sheikh Jarrah are originally refugees from 1948 area Palestine. This is where Israel was created, and they were ethnically cleansed in 1947-48. So they moved from their homes in what is now created as Israel, and they were housed in Sheikh Jarrah. This was an agreement by the United Nations and the Jordanian government at the time that this is going to be your new home. When Israel occupied Jerusalem, part of Masjid Al-Aqsa in East Jerusalem in 1967, they automatically determined that these people, because they moved from their former homes in which is now Israel, they became illegal citizens. And this was an occupying force using their own law and saying these people are illegal now. And they've been trying since 1967 to try and evict them. So this goes back quite far. Okay. And they managed to evict a few people in 2012 and 17 and 18. And they've been working slowly and slowly. But recently, over the past few months, the Israeli court has weighed in by stating that, yes, these people are illegal and they can be forcefully evicted or expelled from their homes. And of course, the people of Sheikh Jarrah and the international community and the Palestinians try to resist their expulsion. So this is what is happening. And that's why we saw, as you mentioned very clearly, that there was a trending of the hashtag Sheikh Jarrah to save the people of Sheikh Jarrah, that they cannot be expelled by an occupying force, which was really carrying on of the ethnic cleansing. This is why what is talked about is the continuation of the Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe.
But Ismail, you mentioned that the Jerusalem court has made a ruling. So isn't that enough? So it's a legal matter, isn't it, or not?
That's a very important question, Jamil. The Israeli courts are an occupying force. They cannot pass law and jurisdiction on occupied territories, which are illegal. So they don't have a right to pass regulations and rules over occupied territories. And therefore, it does not hold in the international community. But of course, these are camouflages that the Israeli government uses by saying, look, this is the courts are saying this, and the Western powers and their friends and allies throughout the world will sort of use that as an excuse, forgetting the fact that Israel is an illegal occupying force and it has absolute no authority or no power or no jurisdiction over the Palestinians in the occupied territory.
And just for our viewers, if you do have any questions, please do comment below and then we can read them out for Brother Ismail. Ismail, you're saying about we're seeing what's going on the ground right now in Sheikh Jarrah. We've seen settlers there violently abusing residents, but at the same time, we see Israeli police force there not doing anything. What's going on there?
I think what has come very clearly through these events over the past few weeks, that we shouldn't separate Israeli settlers, Israeli politicians, and Israeli police. I think they're one and together. They are the occupying forces, irrespective of what segment or what category we have given them. The police are working in conjunction with the settlers, who are working in conjunction with the politicians to expel the Palestinians from their homes. Let's not beat around the bush. This is ethnic cleansing by the Israeli establishment and institutions and organizations and the people as well. So this is a wholesale attack on the Palestinian people. So I don't think we do ourselves any favor by considering this as a movement by Israeli extremists or Israeli police. They're together in here. Even the courts are together. The fact that the Israeli courts are using a justification to evict the Palestinians, to expel the Palestinians, and thereafter bring in the settlers, they're all working together. And I think we should not differentiate that. As far as we are concerned, the Israeli establishment, community, society, and the police and the settlers are working together to get rid of the Palestinians from the whole of Mandate Palestine, really.
And in terms of when you're talking about the politicians being all part of the process, I'm not sure if you saw the clip of the deputy mayor of Jerusalem pointing to a protester about a bullet, that the bullet should have gone there. Imagine that's the deputy mayor of a city. This is the language right at the protest. So this, as you said, it's the whole state. The settlers are backed by the state. It's a whole movement there. But
another important point there, Shamil, sorry, to add to this, is the fact that when Western leaders talk about Israeli politicians and supporting Israeli establishment, that is what they're supporting. And we need to be aware of that when our politicians, all the names you can think of, when they say they give unequivocal support to Israel, that is what they're supporting. They're supporting mayors like that who want to see a bullet in the head of the Palestinians.
So this brings us nicely to a question that we just had from Usman, asking, would you recommend to contact your MP?
Yes, because we live in a democratic system and we need to expose them. We need to expose their hypocrisy, their duplicity, and the fact that they talk about freedom, they talk about justice, they talk about democracy, they talk about international law, yet they themselves are not practicing it. And yes, it is important for us to expose them and then call them out if they do not support human rights for the Palestinians. And this is an opportunity. We're not writing to them to appeal to them. We're writing to them to find out who stands for justice. And I think we should differentiate that. We are not going with a begging bowl to these people. We are saying, you talk about justice, now show it to us. You talk about human rights, standing up for human rights, you do it now. And this is what we need to do. And that's why we request people to go to their MPs and the political ministers and the prime minister as well. They should condemn this unequivocally.
No, absolutely. And you can actually write to your MP on our website, foa.org.uk. Literally all you do is put your postcode in and you can send the letter. What I would go is one step further, because MPs and politicians will try and sometimes ignore the subject, unfortunately. Tweet them, publicly tweet them, asking them, do they get the letter, asking them to condemn the actions of Israel. The letter is quite clear. We're asking for MPs to uphold international law and impose sanctions on Israel. It's quite simple. It's quite clear. And as Ismail said, we're asking to see what their position is. And they need to be held accountable. And that's very important. Messages I've been getting throughout last night and this morning are, look, how are we holding our MPs to account? What mechanisms do we have? What mechanisms do we have at hand? One, email your MP and make it public. Hold them to account. Make that whole process public, whether it's on Facebook, tagging them in, whether it's tweeting them on Twitter. These are great tools, but we need to really get used to it. Another question that's come through is, would it be pointless to start a petition on the government website?
I think petition itself are not that effective. I think it's much more, you can do it. All means, I think we should employ all means possible. We shouldn't undermine them. But at the moment, what is very important is to call out each individual and to find out who stands with human rights, international law, and justice. And I think that is much more important for us. To do a petition in British establishment at the moment, I cannot see what it will achieve immediately, apart from showing that there is a great consensus within the civil society that is supporting the Palestinians. Even to show that, I think is important. So yes, those who are doing petition, carry on, support them. But let's focus our energy where we can really get some momentum and some results. Because I think we should understand the reason Israel is capable of doing this. If you think about what's happening now in the 21st century, it's ethnically cleansing Palestinians, is because it's got the support of Western powers, Western politicians, the media, including UAE, Bahrain, and all these governments who are normalizing relationship with Israel. What they're normalizing is they're normalizing the brutality of Israeli government. And that's what Israel is capable of doing, all these atrocities, and get away with it. And that's for we as civil society must up the tempo and hold our politicians accountable and not allow Israel to get away with it.
Can I just bring it back to Sheikh Jarrah again and ask what's actually happening right now in terms of situation? So we've had the court decision, as it were. Evictions are going to take place, or what's happening on Monday? There's another ruling on Monday.
Sure. Let me. I think that brings us very nicely into the issue of Masjid Al-Aqsa itself, because we haven't got a lot of time. Of course, as Sheikh Jarrah is unfolding in front of us, Palestinians were demonstrating. Being the last Friday Jummah in Ramadan, when Palestinians gathered, there was a spontaneous outcry to save Sheikh Jarrah. People were just calling out for slogans, not more than that, to say save Sheikh Jarrah, so that the international community can hear about it. When the congregation, when the Masalli started living Masjid al-Aqsa, the Israeli army started attacking them. And this is very important. This is where worshippers, after Friday Salah, leaving the masjid, and the Israeli soldiers started attacking them. So what did they do? They went back into the masjid for security, thinking that they would be secure, the Palestinians would be secure within the Haram of Al-Aqsa. But despite that, after a while, the Israeli then started attacking the Palestinians within the masjid who had sought refuge and sanctity within the masjid itself. And this is unprecedented. This is gross, not only human rights violations, this is war crimes we're talking about. And we shouldn't just remain silent about this. Just imagine any community, no community, religious site should be allowed to be stormed in the way that what happened last night. We shouldn't just simply be sitting back. We should use all instruments. We should make noises, use social media, campaign, as you mentioned, petition, do everything we can. Boycott on top of that, anything to do with Israel. And we need to raise our voices. So that is why the attack took place on Masjid al-Aqsa, because the Palestinians were simply chanting to save Sheikh Jarrah. And I'm sort of lost for words at this stage that the Muslim community, I mean, just imagine if that had happened to your local mosque. Don't even talk about the Haram, just your local mosque. We are talking about Masjid al-Aqsa, the first Qibla of Islam, the site of Isra wal Mi'raj. This is where the revelations descended on major prophets from Dawud al-Islam, Sulaiman al-Islam, Isa al-Islam, Maryam al-Islam resided there, Zakaria al-Islam was there, Yahya al-Islam was there. This is a centrality to our Muslim history and heritage. We need to rise up and act now, because we can simply not allow Israel to get away with this kind of atrocities and human rights violations.
So the question about the solidarity that was shown in Masjid al-Aqsa for Sheikh Jarrah, is it just about Sheikh Jarrah here, or is this happening wider?
It is much wider, but Sheikh Jarrah has become a pinnacle. Sometimes it takes a straw to break a camel's back, as they say, the final straw. And this is sort of almost the final straw. I mean, we have got hundreds of settlements built around Jerusalem, nearly 500,000 settlers, illegal settlers around Masjid al-Aqsa. And this has come to a point where Palestinians have got no way out. I mean, they're simply resisting being forcefully expelled. And that is and they're met with live bullets, they're met with stun grenades, they're met with smoke bombs. And this is happening in front of our eyes. And the worst thing, Shamil, there's another aspect of this, is our media. Our media has remained immensely either silent or trying to make out that this is a conflict. This is not a conflict. This is an attack on peaceful civilians living in their homes, minding their own businesses, some of them praying in holy sites, and they've been attacked. This is an attack on Palestinians. So we need to do two things here as well, Shamir. One is to contact the media to cover the story. I think that is very important. The second thing is to make sure that those who are covering the story cover it properly and not misinform their readers. So both of these campaigns are important. We spend so much time on social media, our friends do, just take 10 minutes or even less than that, maybe 5 minutes to send out an email to the editor. Whatever language you use, just make sure you send out an email to those editors, either who are not covering the stories or those who are misrepresenting it. And that is also a great work that you can be doing during this period. And the third aspect of media is the social media itself. We have heard Instagram in particularly and Twitter are barring images and messages coming out from Sheikh Jarrah itself. Those who are doing hashtag Sheikh Jarrah, they're blocking that. We need to use all sorts of mediums and also campaign and lobby the social media outlets to make sure that they do not do this, because they're aiding and abetting with the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians.
Absolutely. And when you talk about the media, when you Google Al-Aqsa today under news, what's happening, the headline will talk about clashes. Are these clashes, Ismail?
This is not clashes. As I touched very briefly, what we have here is attacks on innocent Palestinians. We have forceful expulsions of Palestinians from their legitimate homes. This is a military power, a superpower of the region, attacking civilians. There is no conflict. In a conflict, you have two sides, equal sides, fighting over something. These are legitimate people living in their homelands, living in their mosques, praying peacefully, who are being attacked. This is a vicious attack on Palestinians, unprovoked. because Israel wants to establish the greater Israel and ethnically cleanse Palestinians. And we have to call that out. And we have to make sure in our media, and particularly the BBC, where we pay the license fees, they have to be made responsible for the language they're using and make sure that they report properly and use appropriate languages. And we should really, the idea of eviction has to be challenged, because remember, this is forced expulsion. People are not being evicted from their homes. These are not squatters. There are people who own those homes. Generations per generations have lived in those homes. These are not, as you mentioned very clearly, these are not clashes, but attacks on Palestinians. We should also remember that most of the people were praying when they were being attacked. In fact, there's one amazing image of one of the imams was continuing the salah while they were being attacked by grenade bombs, by sound bombs and smoke bombs. And this is something that's very, very important for us to remember and to highlight and to spread the message as far and wide as possible.
And how do you see it developing in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, a change? For example, on Monday, you have Jerusalem Day, and you also have the ruling from the court regarding what they're calling the evictions. How do you see things playing out?
Well, we hope that this is why we have to act over the weekend, so that international pressure is put onto Israel. On one, let's talk about what they call the Jerusalem Day. They celebrate the occupation of Masjid Al-Aqsa and the conquering of Masjid Al-Aqsa from the Muslims as a Jerusalem Day. And there's a possibility that the Israeli society will come out to celebrate that and sort of rub the noses of Palestinians. And of course, the Palestinians have a right to react to that. I wouldn't want somebody celebrating somebody who have stolen my property, my home, killed some of my members of my families, imprisoned them, denied me my basic right to come and celebrate that. But they'll be celebrating in front of the Palestinians, and the Palestinians are likely to react. Obviously, we have to make sure that if that happens, then the international community should be ready to protect the Palestinians. There's that aspect, and the second aspect is the court, the illegal apartheid court of Israel, trying to again sanction itself, taking over the homes of the Palestinians. If that ruling goes in favor of the Israeli society, then I think the Palestinians have a right to resist that and call out for what it is, that this is an apartheid occupying force whose law does not apply, should not apply to them under any normal circumstances, under Geneva Convention, under UN resolutions. Every apparatus that we understand that governs the international society, these laws simply should not apply, and we cannot allow an Israeli court's ruling to be imposed upon Palestinians.
Yeah. So this weekend is really, really important to kind of ensure there's enough pressure from parliamentarians here and international community on Israel, right? So in terms of what people can do, just to reiterate, they can go to our website foa.org.uk and they can write to the MP. It literally takes 30 seconds. Send that letter off to your MP. Tweet at your MP. It's really, really important. You tweet at them publicly, tag them on Facebook, ask them what their position is on Sheikh Jarrah, ask them to impose sanctions on Israel, and ask them to condemn the actions of Israel on worshippers yesterday. There's loads of videos on if you go to our Twitter feed or on our socials, there's loads of videos you can take from there and just tag any of them, use any of them and say, look, do you condemn this? Ask them outright, do you condemn it? Where do they stand on these issues? So the next 24 hours, 48 hours is really important. Another question we have from Hadi is, should we organize a protest here in the UK?
I think that's a very good question, and we have been pondering about that. It's something we are thinking, and we sort of monitoring the situation on the ground. We're getting feedbacks literally every hour, every half an hour, what is happening. If we feel it is necessary, we will call that. So please follow us on our social media, Friends of Al-Aqsa, all the platforms. And if anything happens, then you will be the first to know. And hopefully we will see you outside wherever we call the demonstration or the protest to take place. I think that is something that is, we haven't confirmed that yet, but it is a possibility that we might have to do that.
There are many questions coming through, many viewers asking about Muslim majority countries and the Muslim world and the reaction from there. What should it be and why are they not speaking up?
Let's remember, let's think about it this way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not ask you what the Muslim majority country did or the Muslim leader did. He'll ask you what you did. And we have got so much power. the little phone you have in front of you, the social media platform that you have, use that hashtag, send out the messages. The mainstream media might not want to tell the world, you tell the world. Even if you've got 10 followers or 1,000 followers, do it, let them know. Don't look left or right, just think what you can do. Write to your MP, as we mentioned, write to the media itself, right? Complain to them, send support. If you know people in Palestine, just send support by simply hashtagging Save Sheikh Jarrah or Hands Off Al-Aqsa. Hands Off Al-Aqsa and Save Sheikh Jarrah are two hashtags that we should be using throughout this weekend, every hour, every half an hour, to make sure that we get the messages through. Yes, what the leadership of some majority Muslim countries are doing is despicable. The others have remained silent. That is not acceptable. But that doesn't matter to us. We have to make the change. And I'm telling you, we as a civil society globally have the power, and we have the resources and the means to isolate Israel and to make it stand up for what it is, an apartheid racist state, and to make sure that they would not be welcome around the globe. So yes, we pine and we worry and we cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we haven't got the leadership that we require. But this is the time not to worry about that. This is the time of thinking what we can do. And there is a lot we can do. So let's get on with that and move on and help save Masjid Al-Aqsa and save Jarrah. This is something very important. This goes to the heart of our iman. There's two images that came out of this that really touched me immensely. One is, I mentioned earlier, while there was stun grenades being thrown in Masjid Al-Aqsa, there was one brother, he was sitting in Salah, he did not move, he carried on. This is steadfastness. This is something that his tawakkul with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so great. The second image I saw is a cleaner cleaning Masjid Al-Aqsa this morning with a smile on his face. Now, it's amazing that we're going to carry on. It doesn't matter what the Israelis are going to do. They can come and half destroy the masjid, throw bombs, throw litter all over a mosque. We're going to start the next morning afresh as if it's our new day, and we're going to carry on with our resistance. We should have that steadfastness in ourselves, that resolve in ourselves, that what can I do? What can we as a collective family can do? And together we can bring about a change. So let's not look at anybody else. Let's ourselves try and bring about a change, inshallah.
I think going back to the practical steps again, just to reiterate how important and how much power we actually have is really important. It's sometimes we get complacent, we think we'll wait for someone else to do it, or why aren't they doing, or what this organization, what this country is not doing. But what are you doing, right? As I said, we've got foa.org.uk. There's a letter there. Have you sent that letter? That's the first question. Have you then forwarded this letter to everyone on your contact list and followed it up with them to ask them, have they contacted the MP? The MP is really to feel the pressure. 1 or 2 emails aren't going to cut it. They need to get hundreds of emails from their constituents for them to feel some pressure. So everyone needs to do that. Secondly, in terms of taking some proactive approach, copy that link and then send it to those on social media. DM people, ask those who are influencers in your circle that you follow, ask them, this is happening, can you share this link with your followers? That will make a huge difference. Sometimes we do that, but there's only so much we can do. We need your help to really be proactive. Contact, take 10 minutes out of your day, maybe 5, whatever you can. Contact those social media influencers, those friends, and ask them to post that link that's on foa.org.uk to send that letter to your MP. And as I said, from there, you can also tweet to your MP, tag your MP, asking them to condemn what they saw, what happened in Masjid Al-Aqsa yesterday. And it's really important we hold our MPs to account. But it's not just about the MPs, it's about ourselves. It's about ourselves and educating ourselves about knowing how to organize, what to do, and how to do it. So please do make sure that you're following us on our socials at Friends of Al-Aqsa, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc., and engage with us. Do we have any more questions before we close here? Ismail, is there something you want to say?
I think what is very important is also to know what happened last night. The Israelis simply didn't arrive and attack Masjid Al-Aqsa while Muslims were praying in their Taraweeh. What they did is they cut off the electricity first. Then they started throwing stun grenade and smoke bombs into the crowd. There were people in itikaf in Masjid Al-Aqsa who were dragged out from the itikaf, which is amazing. There's a clinic within the Masjid Al-Aqsa compound, a medical clinic where doctors and nurses were treating the wounded, and they actually attacked that. I mean, imagine attacking a masjid and attacking a medical clinic within the masjid. And this is barbaric. It's mind-boggling that we just remain silent at this stage. We shouldn't do that. If we allow this kind of things happening, to our brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, they will do that to you, because they will know that these people, Muslims, are easy prey. And we cannot allow that. We will not allow, first and foremost, that they attack Muslims in Palestine, in Masjid Al-Aqsa, while they're praying. We have a bond of humanity, and we have a bond of brotherhood through faith, and we have certain things, a code of conduct globally, so-called human rights, our values. We have to uphold all this, and that is what we're asking to do. We're asking the global society, everybody who's listening to us, spread this message around, please, to show and to care about the people in Palestine, because this is humanity we're talking about, we're trying to safeguard. We cannot allow one group of human beings attacking another group of human beings. That's such a savage way. Even animals, I'm sure, wouldn't be able to do this kind of barbarity. It's simply unacceptable to find a people who are praying in congregation, to cut their electricity first, start attacking them with smoke bombs, then attack their clinics, then attack those who are actually privately praying in seclusion. Yeah, and then talk about justice, human rights. No, come on, we can't take this. We are just human beings, and we need to be able to react to this. And we have to use appropriate means. And as you've been outlined, Shamil, very well, that we contact our legal representatives, we contact our politicians, we contact our media, and possibly if there's going to be a protest, please follow us. We will try and do that as well. But we will try and do as much as we can. And above and beyond all this, continuously make sure we make du'as. Those Muslims, especially those Muslims who are listening to me, make sure you go to your imam, make sure they make congregational du'as, that they make du'as throughout this month while this problem is carrying on, and to make sure that we remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help comes towards the Palestinians, and their oppressions is hopefully lifted sooner rather than later. And we have a great responsibility, my brothers and sisters, especially those who are privileged around the world. Whatever little privilege you have beyond and above the Palestinians, it is our duty and our responsibility to do whatever we can, inshallah.
Ismail bhai, Jazakallah for your time. I'm hoping everyone or the viewers found that useful. Thank you for all the questions, all the engagement. We've gone through everything you need to do. Finally, obviously, visit foa.org.uk, follow us on our socials, share the content. Let's keep at it. But remember, like, for example, yesterday, Palestine trended #1 in the UK. Along with the Al-Aqsa, along with Sheikh Jarrah. But it's more than a hashtag, right? It's more than what we're doing on social media. It has to be in our hearts, and we have to want to do more than just, just for the sake of it, or performative actions here. We need to really take it in our hands and really take this action and do as much as we can and be as proactive as possible. Ismail bhai finished it very nicely. So I will stop there. And so thank you for joining us. Inshallah, we'll do another live stream if you guys want. Leave any comments below, and we'll be in touch. So again, thank you for joining us, and Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.